Mark Schlereth and Jerome Bettis simultaneous here on Radio Row. And I want to start off with both of you guys with a big kind of broad question. Does it matter for Tom Brady? I know it matters in the context of how the season ends, but if Brady is 5-4 at Super Bowls or he is 6-3, same thing with Belichick, does it change the way we talk about them in 20 years? I'll start with you, Jerome Bettis.
I think it shouldn't. I think about this. When you talk about the Buffalo Bills and the 4 straight Super Bowls in a row, that's still an accomplishment, right? So we still acknowledge that. Yeah, they hopefully they should have won. You wish they would have won one.
Yeah.
But you still acknowledge that they were an elite team for a lot of years. So when you look at this argument, yeah, it'd be great if it was 6-3 over 5-4. But the fact that he's been to 9 Super Bowls through the course of his career tells you that, he just about has a 50% rate of going to Super Bowls. Or
it's
whatever.
wild.
It's incredible that he could maintain this type of excellence over this period of time. It's something that we've never seen before in the NFL.
Yeah, for me, listen, I'd like to see the Bills win one, just not the one I played against them. Right.
Of course, right. Just not that one.
Yeah,
just not that one.
Let's put that out there. I just think it's absolutely amazing. Think about this now. Tom Brady in the league for 18 years, 17 years, because 1 year he tore his ACL in week 2, early in week 2, didn't play.
Right.
17 years. In those 17 years, they've been to 13 AFC championships.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It is unreal. So the accomplishment of getting there. Here's what just blows me away is I'm human, you're human. The whole thing about not being sated by success.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'd line up Sunday and play. You'd line up Sunday and play. It's Saturday. It's Monday through Saturday that I don't want to do anymore. Yeah. I don't want to train. I don't want to work. I don't want to study. I don't want to do any of that anymore. I'm tired. And the fact that, I'm calling games. I was doing a Miami game this year, and so I sit down with Danny Amendola, and I say, "Hey, man, just you and me off the record, kind of. Well, not off the record, but just you and me talking. What is it about Brady?"
Yeah.
What did you learn from him? And he's like, I learned how to be a professional. We get done with a game. This is, we get done Sunday, we win, whatever. We walk out of the stadium. Everybody gets their little bag lunch and has a beer, right? You know how it works, right? So everybody's sitting on the bus. You walk on the bus with your bag lunch and your beer. And Tom Brady has already downloaded next week's opponent from that Sunday.
Yeah.
And he's on the bus.
Looking at what they did defensively.
They're heading to the plane to fly back to New England, and whatever it is, he's looking at the Bills from 2 hours earlier, 2 hours previous, studying what they do on defense. That's to not be sated by your success and still being able to grind like that. That's what I find fascinating about Bill Belichick and Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, and that is interesting because I think no matter what you do for a living, if you have success, you start to cut corners a lot of times. People think that success, you recognize, am I doing more than I need to do, right? Figuring out exactly what you could do. I'm curious, we're talking to Jerome Bettis, we're talking to Mark Schlereth. Jerome, obviously you're a Steeler, and I want to get your opinion on this too, Mark.
Yeah. What's
going on with the Steelers? When you look at for a long time, they were the model NFL franchise. You're going to point to a franchise that did it right, in quotation marks, right. And then it just seems like the wheels have come off. What do you think is going on right now? If you were there giving them advice, what would you say they need to be doing? And what did you think about LeVeon Bell in general?
LeVeon Bell, I thought he was, at the time, one of the best running backs in the NFL, period. Yep. No question about it. There's a reason why the Steelers were, I think, 30th or something, maybe 31st or something in rushing. It's a reason that was the case because they didn't have Le'Veon Bell. Yeah. So
you don't blame him for sitting out and all that.
You know what? I think I blame both because both parties needed to make this deal happen.
Right.
Because it benefited both parties. Le'Veon, it benefited, and it benefited the Steelers. So I thought both parties should have found a way to get this deal done because both sides need each other. And I think that's the one thing that we have to understand. So that's the one problem. They should have had LeVeon Bell in. But I think from that moment on, it became a fractured locker room. And people had to then start picking sides, right? Okay, whose side are you on in all of this? And then from that, now it becomes, okay, well, I've got to look out for myself now, because if Le'Veon is they hosing Le'Veon, right? This is what these guys are thinking in the locker room. Now that selfish mentality starts to erode the locker room. It was already there.
Yep.
Okay, but it would peak out from now and then, and you could contain it.
Who's responsible for that? For creating that culture? Is it Mike Tomlin?
You have to, absolutely. And Coach Tomlin has owned that.
Yeah.
He said, hey, you know what? I've got to look at myself first. But I think part of it is, wanting these guys to be professionals, wanting them to have a little bit more room, allowing these guys to kind of police themselves. And that was part of the process. Some coaches have a little bit more of their foot on the guys, necks, if you will.
Yeah.
Like Belichick, he's very firm in how he handles things. Well, Coach Tomlin said, okay, I'm going to take a different approach. These guys are men. I'm treat them like men. I'm going to back off a little bit, let them police themselves. And as it turns out, maybe you need to now come in and be a little bit more firm with these guys so that they know where the standard is, so that they don't cross that line. That's what's happening.
We're talking to Jerome Bettis and Mark Schlereth.
I think one of the big things about playing this game, and one of the things you don't want to have happen to you, is you don't want guys to become independent contractors.
Yeah. Right.
So, if I'm an independent contractor, I'm looking at the game through my eyes going,
that's right.
I just need to handle my business.
Yes.
And to get the best out of a football team, man, we have to be sacrificing for one another. It's amazing what you can accomplish when nobody cares who gets the credit.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
And so when you have that mentality, you're a great team. When you become independent contractors, because guys are worried about their money, guys are worried about their playing time, guys are worried about
the stats.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden everything breaks down. And you'd be surprised just the razor thin line that you stand on as a football team all the time between being sacrificial and then being independent contractors.
One guy who's an independent contractor, it seems clearly also with the Steelers right now, is Antonio Brown. What in the world, Jerome Bettis and Mark Schlereth, we're talking with here live, Radio Row, Super Bowl 53. What do you do if you're the Steelers about Antonio Brown? And based on what you've seen from the Rooney family, is there any way in your mind, Jerome Bettis, that he comes back?
I think there is a way. The Rooneys, they are pretty clear in how they operate, but they're not opposed to second opportunities. They're not just hardliners like that's it, it's over. But also they're realists in understanding that there may not be a good scenario that they can deal with this situation, in the sense of a trade may not be viable. You got a lot of money that's involved. They just redid the contract. They just gave him the big signing bonus and all those kind of things. So and for an organization, if I'm looking at Antonio Brown, I'm saying to myself, okay, it looks as though the 3 years is doable. In $21 million, 3 years, oh yeah, we can make that work. But the minute that you fork over a first-round pick or 2 first-round picks or a first round in the second round or a first to the third, he's going to say, okay, I've got leverage on you. I want a new contract, right? So now, regardless, you're going to be very leery of making a deal that gives the Steelers the correct amount of compensation for that. So the Steelers, from that standpoint,
they're in a tough spot.
They're in a very tough spot. I think you got to try to find a way to coexist, if you will. And I just think that's the way you got to try to figure out.
I think I agree with all those things, but I think the issue that you get into is that you've acquiesced to Antonio Brown.
Yeah,
you've allowed this to become like we hear the discourse that they've had. This has been forever.
Yes.
Like, this has been 5 or 6 years of this that's going on. It's just come to a head now. So the issue that you get into if you're the Steelers is Mike Tomlin has allowed it to happen. You're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen.
Yep.
He's allowed it to happen. And I think for Mike Tomlin to get his finger back on the pulse of the organization and to have that authority, at some point you have to say, we are no longer going to put up with this. See, that's interesting about players.
Even if you get less value for him, it's an overall. Yes.
It's amazing if you read some of the articles that are out there right now, and I understand he's a hard worker. When he's on the practice field, he works hard. He does all those things. But when you show up, and this is just my personal opinion, you show up late to something, you're essentially saying my time is more valuable than your time.
Yeah.
I'm more important than you, and you want to be a championship organization, you cannot allow that attitude to permeate your locker room. Guys look at him and go, man, I want the house away from St. Vincent's College, right? I want what he's gotten. Like, they've acquiesced to him on a consistent basis. I want those things. That's not championship. And the Steelers, to me, I grew up being a Steeler fan. I love the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were my team as a kid.
Yeah.
Right? I wanted to become a football player because of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, when I see Mel Blount or I see Jack Ham or Jack Lambert or man, I'm like a little kid, man. I get like, oh, my God. Like, when the first time I met Mel Blount, Mel said to me, he goes, hey, Mark, how you doing? I was cool. I was like, hey, Mel, good to see you, man. Then I ran to my room and called my wife. I was like, Mel Blount knows my freaking name, man. He knows my name. Like, I'm not kidding you. Like, that's how big of a fan I was. And for the Steelers, man, their championship organization, you cannot allow that to go on in your locker room.
So how do you solve it? Like, so if you're Ben Roethlisberger, right? You were in practice for a long time. You ever seen your quarterback and your wide receiver, your star wide receiver, get into what is really like a little league spat, right? Like, where a guy's throwing football at somebody else and like he just walks out of practice. That's crazy, right?
That's crazy. That is crazy. And so here's what I do, right? If I'm in a situation, I say, okay, tell you what, you're not being traded. Come to work when you're supposed to come to work. That's the end of it, right? And I prepare as if he's not going to be with us, right?
Yep.
And you come when you're ready, right? Here's the parameters. If you don't come here, this is what happens, right? You lay everything out very crystal clear. And as those things start to happen, then you do exactly what you say you're going to do. Okay, if you don't show up by here, we're going to fine you every day, such and such. So you're very crystal clear in terms of the repercussions of your actions, right? And then by the time the games come, it's very clear if you're going to get in line or you won't get paid for this year. And so at some point, he's one of those guys where he wants the adulation and he wants to be on the field.
Right.
And you take his opportunity to be on the field away. Guys straighten up very quickly when they see there is no more wiggle room to be had. And then you take the money away. Boom, boom, boom. But you have to do it systematically, and you cannot waver in one bit. You let them know, here's what the deal is. We're not trading you. Get that out of your head. We'll see you in August. Have a great off season. And that's the end of it. And you're very clear. And if you don't show up, we're fining you. Starting this day, it's going to be $12,000, $18,000, whatever the number is. That's what we're fining you per day. Send them the letter. Let them know this is the deal. That's it.
We're talking to Jerome Bettis and Mark Schlereth, 2 Super Bowl winners here. Who wins the Super Bowl? I'll start with you, Mark.
Listen, man, 2 very evenly matched teams, 2 great football teams, very exceptionally well coached. I think everybody wants to point to the differences. I think there's more similarities than differences. I think these guys, it's funny, and you would think this is pretty standard, but it's not. Like, it's not only this is what we do, let me coach you what we do, but with these 2 teams, this is why we do it. And not only why we do it, but this is how it's going to affect us. So we do this in the first quarter, and this is what the benefits will be in the second quarter and then third quarter. And so when you sit down and talk with the players from these teams, they have more football knowledge and understanding than any other teams in the league. They just get it. That said, I mean, I think it's going to be a great game. I'm picking the Patriots just based on experience, having been there, their ability to game plan, their ability to adjust during the course of a game. But I think it's going to be a great game.
Jerome, you're here with FedEx. Tell us about that, and then tell me who you're picking.
That's a good one. Well, I'm here with FedEx, and it's the Air and Ground NFL Players of the Year awards that we're going to recognize the top quarterback and running back performances of the 2018 NFL season. And this year, it marks the 16th season of FedEx Air and Ground program. And with that being said, the voting is open until this Thursday, the 31st. You can go. It's two places that you can vote: the NFL Twitter page, or you can go to NFL.com/FedEx, and you can vote for the ground and the air. And then also, FedEx is going to make two $20,000 donations in lieu of the winners to the USO, and in particular the Pathfinder program, and that's a program that helps service members in the military families reacclimate into civilian life. So it's a great opportunity to help in raising of the money, and that money is going to go to a great source.
So who you got in the game?
I'm going with it's hard to go against the Patriots. I'm rooting for the Rams. I got drafted by the Rams.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for the Rams, but that doesn't say much because the Patriots, they know how to win. If you take something away from them, it doesn't surprise them because during the course of the season, they have had to play that type of football. So whether it's they throw the ball 40 times, you look at one or two games during the season, they had to do that. If they had to run the ball 40 times, you look at a game or two, that was their game plan. So they game plan regardless. And if it doesn't work, they throw it out and they keep going. And that's the difference with most teams. Most teams, they have to do one or two things. They got to be able to run the football in order to get play action. Well, that's not how the Patriots operate. If it doesn't work, they scrap it and they go to what works. So I think with that being said, I'm rooting for the Rams, but I think the Patriots.
Outstanding stuff as always, boys. Appreciate it. Mark Schlereth, Jerome Bettis, what you got?